Hong Kong is a city built on motion. Neon signs hum through the night, ferries cut across dark water, and millions of lives overlap without ever truly touching. In districts like Tsim Sha Tsui, the streets never sleep. Light spills from storefronts and high-rise windows, masking the quiet suffering that can exist just one floor above the noise. In 1999, behind one of those glowing streets, a secret was unfolding that would permanently stain the city's collective memory. Most people around the world recognize Hello Kitty as a harmless symbol of childhood. A cartoon face stitched onto backpacks, lunchboxes, and toys. A character meant to represent innocence and safety. But for a small group of detectives in Hong Kong, that image would come to represent something else entirely. Something that still unsettles those who worked the case decades later. This is a real criminal case involving violence, exploitation, and deeply disturbing themes. The details are presented for documentary and educational purposes. Viewer discretion is advised. This is the story of Fan Man-yi. Fan was born in 1976, into circumstances that offered little room for stability. She spent her early years moving through a government-run orphanage in Matau Y, an environment defined more by silence and structure than warmth. When she aged out of the system, she entered adulthood without a family to fall back on, without financial security, and without guidance. For Fan, survival was not an abstract concept. It was daily reality. She drifted toward the edges of society, finding work in nightlife environments where money came quickly but safety did not. Over time, substance dependency took hold, further narrowing her options and tethering her to people who exploited vulnerability rather than protected it. She eventually married a man whose own instability turned their relationship into a cycle of fear and harm. Arguments became violence. Violence became routine. Her body carried the quiet evidence of what she endured, injuries that healed just enough to allow the pattern to continue. Despite this, Fan kept going. In late 1998, everything shifted. She gave birth to a son. For the first time in her life, Fan imagined something beyond survival. She imagined stability. She imagined safety. She imagined being the kind of parent she never had. Determined to change her circumstances, she left her husband and found work as a nightclub hostess. It wasn't an easy path, but it was a step forward. For a brief moment, it looked like she might escape the gravity of her past. What Fan didn't realize was that in the world she was trying to leave behind, debts are not just financial. They are personal. And they are never forgotten. Sometime in early 1999, Fan was accused of stealing a wallet containing roughly 4,000 Hong Kong dollars. The wallet allegedly belonged to Chan Man Lok, a high-ranking member of the Wuxing triad. Chan was known for his volatility, his involvement in drug trafficking, and his intolerance for perceived disrespect. To Chan, the missing money wasn't the real issue. What mattered was reputation. Status. Control. He believed Fan had humiliated him, and in his world, that demanded a response. Chan recruited two younger associates, Liang Wailuan and Liang Xingqiu. Both were deeply entrenched in drug use and eager to prove themselves to someone with power. Together, they formed a volatile dynamic fueled by substances, ego, and unchecked aggression. In March of 1999, Fan was taken from the street and brought to a third-floor apartment on Granville Road. Apartment 3B. What happened inside that apartment would last nearly a month. Fan was confined, isolated from the outside world, and subjected to repeated harm. The men, often under the influence, lost any sense of restraint or consequence. Days blurred together. The abuse escalated, not driven by logic or purpose, but by impulse and control. The apartment itself created a surreal contrast. Toys were scattered throughout the room. Stuffed animals lined the walls. Hello Kitty dolls sat in plain view, their fixed expressions silently observing what unfolded around them. Also living in the apartment was a 14-year-old runaway known as Ah Fong. She had nowhere else to go and quickly became trapped in the same environment. Too young, frightened, and emotionally overwhelmed to intervene, she witnessed events that would later haunt her dreams and define her future. Time inside apartment 3B lost its meaning. By mid-April of 1999, Fan Manyi could no longer endure the injuries she had suffered. Her life ended quietly, in a room full of noise. For a moment, reality returned. The men realized the gravity of what had happened. Panic replaced bravado. Fear replaced control. What followed was a desperate attempt to erase what could never truly be undone. Over the next several weeks, they worked to destroy evidence. Items were discarded across the city. Remains were removed in pieces, disposed of in a way they believed would prevent discovery. But Chan Manlok made a decision that defies explanation. He kept Fan's skull. It was concealed inside the head of a large Hello Kitty doll, sewn shut and placed openly in the apartment. The doll sat there for weeks, unnoticed, as life inside the flat continued almost as if nothing had changed. Meals were eaten. Drugs were used. The city outside kept moving. And the doll stayed exactly where it was. Now pause for a moment. Because everything about this case, every conviction, every sentence, every detail we know today, hinged on what happened next. In May of 1999, Ah Fong could no longer carry what she had seen. Haunted by fear, guilt, and recurring visions, she walked into a police station and told officers a story so disturbing that many initially struggled to believe her. But this time, the truth didn't stay hidden. Police searched Apartment 3B. What they found would shock even seasoned investigators. The trial that followed in 2000 became one of the most infamous in Hong Kong's history. But despite the scale of the abuse described, prosecutors faced an enormous challenge. Because so much evidence had been destroyed, forensic experts were unable to determine a definitive cause of death. Without that certainty, a murder conviction could not be secured. The case relied heavily on Ah Fong's testimony. In exchange for immunity, she recounted weeks of confinement, fear, and psychological trauma. Her testimony was detailed, consistent, and devastating. It also came at a tremendous personal cost. She would spend years in psychiatric care, struggling with the weight of what she witnessed and the belief that she had been powerless to stop it. Fan's family listened as the details unfolded in court. Her aunt spoke about Fan's final wish to be a good mother. Her son, only 5 months old when she disappeared, would grow up knowing her only through court records and headlines. In the end, Chan Manlok, Leung Wailuan, and Leung Xingqiu were convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to life imprisonment. The presiding judge described the crime as displaying a level of cruelty rarely seen in the city's history. The building on Granville Road no longer stands. It has been demolished, replaced by something new. But what happened there remains deeply embedded in Hong Kong's collective memory. This case leaves behind difficult questions. Was justice truly served, or did the destruction of evidence allow the system to fall short? How do we reconcile the corruption of something innocent with the darkness it concealed? And how many stories like Fan's never reach a courtroom at all? Fan Manyi tried to outrun the life she was born into. For a brief moment, she almost succeeded. Her story is not just about violence. It is about vulnerability, power, and what happens when society fails to protect those already living at its edges. If this story made you stop and reflect, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe life imprisonment was enough for what happened here? And if you want to continue exploring the cases that changed cities, cultures, and legal systems, make sure to like this video and subscribe. New deep dives are coming, and the next story is one you won't want to miss.